Hey everyone, this is Sean Deveney from Heavy Sports. I'm here to talk some NBA, especially the Celtics, with our NBA insider Steve Bulpett. Steve, how are you today?
Warm, but fine.
Yeah, that seems to be a theme around us. We're both in Massachusetts, but also around the whole world. It turns out.
Yeah, it's almost like this is a thing or something,
It seems like it. Yeah, yeah. Well, let's get into the Celtics here. You talked to some folks around the league, some GMs and coaches and such, about kind of where the Celtics are and what they were able to do here in the off season. What did you get from those conversations?
Well, excuse me, they're not really happy that the Celtics have had kind of a successful offseason so far in terms of adding to their rotation without taking anybody away. So yeah, they expect that Boston's going to be improved, and when you're talking about a team that went to the NBA Finals being improved, that's fairly significant.
Yeah, and that was something that when Brad Stevens has spoken in press conferences, I think he's done like two or so here in the off season. He said the same thing repeatedly, and that is adding without taking anything away. Adding to the roster without giving up anything. That's a tough thing to do. And especially if you're dealing with luxury taxes and sort of the limitations that you have as an NBA executive, but he's managed to do that. You could say, well, they lost Daniel Tice. Sure, I think they'll survive that. They've managed to do this without really giving up any pieces of their rotation.
Right. I mean, they went 7 or 8 deep last year. I guess you could count Tice among that, but. I think they would, when you look at how you want to structure your salary, your books, I think that they, even last year, would rather have had, financially, would rather have had a third center making less money than Daniel Tice did. It's kind of hard to pay that much for that role. You really have to look at what roles that person going to fill and what price should that role come at?
Yeah, he was making, I think, $8.6 million, which is a lot for your third big guy there, and certainly he was also, I think, a tradable contract. I think that was one reason why he was good to have, and of course that's what wound up happening. When they make the move with Dennis Schroeder to be able to get Daniel Tice, not as a stopgap option last year, but also as somebody that now you can include in a trade the way they did with Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, it's said that every contract is tradable. I mean, the Celtics, the Red Sox found that out with was it Adrian Gonzalez a few years ago? So perhaps if I'm Sean Marks, I might consider with Kyrie Irving calling the Dodgers instead of the Lakers. See if they'll take his contract.
I think that worked out for the Dodgers in the end, though. Well, maybe not him specifically, but they've done all right since then. Let's talk a little bit more about another issue that has come up with the Celtics, and that is the bravado, the big mouth, however you want to put it, of Grant Williams. God bless him. What did you make of the things that he said about the Warriors? That the Celtics were the better team, the Warriors were a more disciplined team. It's not something that someone would typically say, but I think if you watch that series, I don't know, maybe it was onto something.
Yeah, I think it kind of, how you look at it kind of boils down to semantics. I see the point and I agree with this point, except to say that, like Williams said, the Celtics were the better team, but that Golden State was more disciplined.
Right.
But then you realize, if you want to look at it hard, discipline is a talent.
Right.
So, the Celtics, you can say what you want, and, I fully believe the Celtics screwed it up as much as the Warriors took it. The Celtics clearly got flustered, and I think if you give truth serum to the Warriors, or certainly the Warriors coaches, they'll agree with that. But like I said, talent, discipline is a talent, and being disciplined is part of if you're not disciplined, if you're turning the ball over, then you're not getting to your talent, you're not getting to your skill. The point's well taken, but having Grant Williams say that and put another arrow in the quiver of the Warriors. They're only scheduled to meet, of course, twice during the regular season.
Right.
It's not like they got to face him 10 times.
Yeah, and I think if you were breaking down that series beforehand and you decided you were going to go with the Warriors, you're picking them. I think experience was one reason that you would have done that, and certainly, when you talk about discipline, I think that's part of the experience of having been there before. And kind of knowing what to do in that situation. Grant is in his third season. He'd be heading into his fourth season. Are you okay with having a third-year role player being such a vocal guy on the team? Is that conducive to team chemistry toward what you want if you're Ime Udoka?
Yeah, if you can play. He's extension eligible. If he comes in at the right number, they'll take him because he's clearly valuable. He can do a bunch of different things. He's a physical defender, can guard a few different positions, is a 3-point, a floor stretcher from the corner especially, and can get inside with his bulk. So yeah, I think sometimes it's not a bad thing to have a little brother on the team that you can pick on.
I just wonder, but do you want the little brother to be getting you into fights? If you're Marcus Smart, you've been around with the Celtics for 9 years now. Do you want the little brother to be the one who's getting you into fights with the big school bully?
Well, I think someone like Marcus Smart would look at it as a benefit. It's like, great, now I don't have to start the fight; someone else will. Can still be able to save his energy.
It's fair, yeah. You mentioned that of course Grant is extension eligible this year. Do you think something gets done there? Obviously, they value what he does, but there are constraints financially, and is this a guy who you're gonna go into the luxury tax going forward in order to keep and keep for a while?
Yeah, I think. Well, again, I think that it comes down to what the number is, what number Grant Williams comes in at, or what does he want? Maybe someone else will give him a bigger number. Is this a place where he's comfortable? Is this a place where he can grow himself? Depending on the length of the contract, to get another bite at the apple down the line. If he goes somewhere else, would he get exposed with more minutes? All those things come into play, but I think that there's clearly a number that the Celtics aren't going to go over.
I would think that they'd be thinking somewhere probably on both sides, somewhere in the range of what Robert Williams got. And that's not to say that Grant Williams is as good a player as Robert Williams, but when Williams signed his extension, of course, there was all the health questions. There was that was something that sort of weighed that down. But that was 4 years. And I think it was $48 million or something. I think that's probably the neighborhood that Grant lines up in. Maybe slightly less, but I think if he's willing to accept that, then I think the team would be. I think that would be acceptable. Slightly more than the mid-level exception, in other words.
Yeah. Again, I think it could come down to length of contract too, and does he have an out? All those things. I think Grant Williams will want to be creative. It's this contract and what the next one's going to look like as well. And like I said, if he looks at it and says, this is a position, this is a team that's going to be going deep in the playoffs where I can showcase what I do. Am I better off staying here for a little bit less for a couple of years to boost my marketability to then hit free agency again, and not in the not too distant future. There are different columns, and how they stack up is what you come to at the end, when you decide what's a fair deal for you, and obviously the team's going to look at it and see what's a fair deal for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to Draymond Green. He got $85 million after all those runs that the Warriors had to the finals, where he kind of showed how valuable he was, even if he didn't have the numbers of a star. That maybe if Grant had a 3-year deal with an out after the second year, and the Celtics go to the finals, maybe win a championship in the next couple of years, then he's in a position after that next year to then he can kind of look to try to get some Draymond Green money.
Well, yeah. Well, there are other factors at play here. If the Celtics don't get another big that they're comfortable with, do they end up playing small more, and that would increase Grant Williams' role, or do they are they going to be giving Danilo Gallinari minutes that would otherwise go to Grant Williams? You're looking for an outside shooter. It's Gallinari probably over Grant Williams. Defensively, that's where the question comes in with Gallinari. So things to factor in. It's quite possible that Grant Williams' role with the Celtics this coming season could be less than it was last year. Or if they play small more often, it could be even greater in some regards. Yeah.
I'd like to see him develop a little bit as a passer too. I think that's one area. I think he has that ability to be a little bit of a ball handler, dribble handoffs, all that stuff, and run a little offense from the top of the key a little bit. I think he can do that. We'll see if that's a step that they take. Well, thanks, everyone. Appreciate you guys being here. And thank you, Steve. Always nice to chat Celtics with you. And we'll be back. Check out heavy.com sports for Celtics and NBA coverage.